Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me and allowing me to continue to be your daily advocate. If you're new here or you're not subscribed for any reason, please do me a huge favor and hit the subscribe button. Thank you to all of you who have been watching and following me for so long. It truly means a lot, and I'm glad that I can be this person.
This is back before it all got started, and I want you to listen to the guy who dropped the lawsuit and then walked out like a coward after dropping the lawsuit, Jay Clayton himself, using William Hinman's speech in September of 2018 and referencing how we at the agency look at digital asset as a security. Check it out here. Shout out to Nerd Nation Unbox.
What falls within the ambit of a securities offer and sale is a facts and circumstances analysis, where we use a principles-based framework that has served American companies and investors well for over 80 years. Bill Hinman recently outlined the approach we take to evaluate whether a digital asset is a security, and I encourage you to take a look at Bill's speech, which is available on our website.
We and our on our website, and it's the approach that we take to evaluate whether a digital asset is a security. That is the kind of trouble and verbiage we have here, especially knowing that William Hinman and Jay Clayton have profited greatly from what they have decided to do after they left office here. Now take a look at this, because this is some hot clips right here from Jeremy Hogan and John Deaton on BitBoy's channel. Shout out to him for a great interview. I'm not going to give you all of it, but I'm going to give you the spicy stuff here that you need to hear. And we're going to start right here at 15:02, where you get the latest update at what's going on right now, because discovery has officially ended, as Jeremy Hogan tells us just 40 minutes ago, except for those 63 pesky emails. How about that one? Take a listen here.
Still waiting on the motion for reconsideration, which I would expect possibly at the end of this week, if not certainly next week, where Judge Netburn is ruling whether or not the Hinman email, the 63 emails, she previously ruled that that was discoverable and needed to be turned over to Ripple. The SEC filed a motion to reconsider. They flip-flopped their arguments, and they're trying to keep that not discoverable to Ripple. I think that the motion for the strike fair notice, I think that's not that big, because I really don't see, it's huge if she denies it. I mean, if she grants it, because then Ripple will
She was never going to accept it.
Right, but the real issue right now for me is this deliberative process privilege, because the SEC does not want those 63 emails. Because imagine this, 63 emails went around talking about this Hinman speech. What are the chances, Ben or Jeremy, that XRP was not raised? Now, one person said, hey, what about XRP? How does that fit into the mix? So when we get that ruling, that's going to determine how the case proceeds, I believe.
Now, just to follow up on that, John.
Now, let me skip ahead here, because I want to get to this next section. And by the way, it was a great interview by Ben Armstrong here. So take a listen at this clip here, Jeremy's response.
To review evidence in camera, which isn't really evidence yet, and then say, okay, this isn't really evidence that's supposed to be involved in the case. Now, whether the judge is really able to do that or not, I think it does affect her thinking no matter what. So yeah, once the cat's out of the bag, the cat's out of the bag.
Yeah, that's the way I would probably see it. I mean, if it's something negligible, that's not really a big impact, but some of these things have been big deals. So Jeremy, so we talked about what's going on today in the case, where the expert discovery is over. In your view, what is like the biggest development, since November? Because it seems like we haven't got a lot of news since then. What's the biggest development that people should be paying attention to?
Well, I think the next big ruling is going to be on the motion to strike the fair notice defense. Whether that stays or goes is the big motion that's pending. In discovery, what John just touched on is the big issue, whether those 63 emails come out or not. You have to understand that what the SEC has done in this case, as far as those emails up to this point, is extraordinary. I mean, in essence, they were supposed to turn these emails over about 9 or 10 months ago, and they just refused. And then they were ordered again, and they refused. And then they were ordered a third time a couple weeks ago, and they said, you know what, Judge, we're going to ask you to reconsider your opinion, which I've only done once in 20 years of practice. And then if they lose that, they're going to ask Judge Torres to reconsider what Judge Niprin said. So it's really extraordinary what's going on with these emails. It's not normal. And that's why at first I wasn't quite on board with John, but now I'm 100% on. There's something in those emails they do not want us to see.
Absolutely there is. They wouldn't fight that hard to avoid that if there wasn't good reason for it. Now, I'm going to take you here and hear Jeremy's response here on when we may see a settlement or this case end. Take a listen right here.
Happens until the summer.
Okay, so the summer.
So John Deaton says summer.
I think I can vibe with that. I think kind of I think it'll be over in September. I'll just leave it at that. Jeremy, what about you? Where do you think all this is heading to?
Well, I agree with you. I think this is over in September. And what I did is, right now we still have some pending motions. So we have the motions to strike the individual defendants' cases. We have the motion to strike the fair notice defense. We have to get rid of those motions first. Once those are done, what the judge is going to do is she's going to set a briefing calendar for summary judgment. That's the next big thing that's going to happen. Once we get that briefing schedule, we're going to know when the case has to be over, because I think the case is going to be over at summary judgment. So we'll know that soon. I think that based upon how she's handled these things previously on other cases, I think it's a 4 or 5 month process to get everything briefed and heard. So that's why I put it out into September as well.
So how rare is it? I'll stick with you here, Jeremy. How rare is it for a case like this with the SEC to actually go to completion where there's a judgment and not a settlement?
Well, we know statistically that like 95% of these cases resolve at some level.
What's that percent? Say it again.
It was something like 95%.
Okay.
I don't know the exact. It's over 90% settled. Now that's for a lot of different reasons. A lot of these companies that are sued by the SEC just don't have the money to defend themselves. Obviously, Ripple has the money to defend themselves, so that's one reason it might go the distance. Also, not a lot of companies have the ammunition that Ripple has developed in this case over the last couple of months to defend themselves. So this gives all the signs of a case that could go all the way, but statistically speaking, most of these cases do settle.
So it's very likely that the case will settle. Now I want to take you to 1 or 2 spots left here that you need to hear. And it's really about how this case ends and what this case looks like when it ends. Will there be clarity when the case ends itself? So let's give a listen right in here. Check it out.
Is clarity therefore included in that, right? Like if they settle, we know for sure going forward that XRP is not going to be deemed a security, correct?
Right. So Ripple would make sure that that happens, because a settlement is completely within the control of the parties. They craft the settlement agreement, right? So Ripple would never enter into any settlement agreement where continuing and future sales of XRP are deemed securities. They'd be, shooting themselves in the foot. So absolutely, if we see a settlement, guarantee that Ripple's legal team is going to make sure it includes that language that XRP sales are not securities.
Yeah, there you have that. And how about that for a comforting fact if we do get to a settlement? John Deaton goes on to say what he believes is the next target after this case, and I am inclined to agree with him.
I think that's why this case is so important, because of its impact potentially on all the other altcoins. But they want to find that Gary Gensler keeps telling the exchanges, come in and register, which means they have to come in and register that they're offering securities, but the SEC won't help them in any guidance in which specific assets are securities. And so I believe we're going to see an exchange sued within the next several months.
Well, absolutely, and it's unfortunate, but I believe it too. Both of those gentlemen also believe, as we do here, that the agency that should be in charge of cryptocurrency is really the one that was assigned it back in the day by FinCEN and a federal judge that said all virtual currencies are to be regulated and controlled by the CFTC. That's right, the Commodities Future Trade Commission. All right, we got a lot to get through right quick. Let's see if we can do it quickly here. Let's change gears. Thank you to all of them for that great stuff today. We still have the Russia and Ukraine war going on and the effects from the SWIFT sanctions and what's going on with this monetary battle that's also now become a physical war. And I tell you, the U.S. dollar is down against the yuan, says Gold Telegraph, but let's keep going. We got a lot. There's This Week in Congress and Crypto, and obviously the narrative has shifted greatly because of the war in Russia with Ukraine. And it goes on to say here, first narrative battle is that saying never let a good crisis go to waste, and we're seeing the pro-anti-crypto camps make their pitch. This is still evolving situation. There's two camps. There are two competing media narratives about crypto right now. One is crypto has enabled significant direct contributions to Ukraine's resistance efforts, and the other one is crypto has the potential to be used by Russia to evade sanctions. Now, how about that for being caught between a stink and a poop? Right? Because what that means as a regulator and as governments, you better do something, because you can't. We're going to get to it too. We're going to get to it because there's talk about Bitcoin and Charles Gasparino coming up. Hang in there. We got it. We got a lot coming. There's an immediate desire to act from Congress when it comes to financial deterrence and sanctions. Nothing is off the table. Fed Jerome Powell will be testifying both chambers this week in what is supposed to be a recovery inflation focus. We will turn to Ukraine now. It says, watch how members now view the risk benefits of CBDC's report surfaces Russia looking into digital currency. Well, that ain't all they're looking into. We know they've been looking into a digital ruble, but Katie McCullough comments here, and it's shared here, if Russia had its own digital currency, then none of the new sanctions would matter. Hashtag cybersecurity. If you ever wanted to know something, know this now. Listen, the war could have ended 15 minutes ago in Russia, Ukraine, and I hope that it has. But I know they're in talks. We don't know where they go. Hopefully it goes to a place of peace. But what I can tell you is, when that war ends, and I hope it's already over, but when it does, it doesn't matter. The narrative of cryptocurrencies being used to obfuscate sanctions from SWIFT or anything else can no longer be ignored. It must be embraced and regulated. That's where we're going, ladies and gentlemen. And don't be surprised if you see an emergency situation, which the executive order has already for crypto been called and referred to a matter of national security. Come on in. Later this month, we see a hearing on CBDCs and the risk and benefits. We'll keep an eye on that as well. Combating crypto usage, illicit finance has been an issue shared by both sides of the aisle. The goal is to prevent bad actors, but not stifle innovation, which is what they have been doing up until now. Question remains, though, if there will be calls for more financial regulation or cuts from services as related to engaging foreign nations and their citizens. Jesse Powell said he would not cut off anybody on the platform from Russia, on the Kraken platform, unless it was legally pursued. Binance is already agreeing to work with SWIFT on sanctions and the Western government. Finally, the State of the Union tomorrow and the rumored executive order on crypto pushed back. Given the recent developments, it will be worth monitoring to see if the staff have resources to finish this effort or if it could morph into something different given Ukraine. On the bright side, it's been incredible seeing all the crypto support flooding into Ukraine and their recent tweeting accepting crypto donations. You know, this right here you can follow. It's on my Twitter if you're so inclined to contribute. Take a look right here. This is even more signs about how the systemic problems from war continue to grow here. The European Central Bank says Russian banks in Europe face collapse now. The European arm of Cyberbank, or Serbabank, however you say it, Russia's biggest lender, faces failure. The European Central Bank warned after it run on its deposits. And believe me, when you see run, this is what they mean. This is the lines of these people trying to get their money out of the bank. This is ridiculous. This is incredible what's going on here. You know, it's not going to go away. I tell you, this whole digital money business, programmable money, CBDCs, stable coins, cryptocurrencies. China can easily persuade countries like Russia to use the electric or digitized digital Chinese yuan, we should say, the e-yuan, after being banned from SWIFT and chips to blockchain-based settlements done using digital yuan can challenge the traditional payment system. Well, to add to that, Japan has joined the USA's efforts in blocking Russian banks, making things more difficult, but we see the conversation about shutting down Bitcoin isn't going away, and in fact, it's ramping up. We know China has kicked miners out of its country. We know that they've also outlawed direct cryptocurrency transactions. So that means pretty much you got to go through the Chinese yuan, the digital yuan. And now we see European Parliament considering a ban of proof of work, possibly as far as to go as transactions as well. You know, if they do this here in the United States, it's going to be very, very impactful. This is from Charles Gasparino. One bank CEO just told me that if we and the rest of the world really want to squeeze Russia, we ban Bitcoin immediately, since much of the Russian economy runs on illicit activities tied to crypto. He said, I'm not endorsing this, of course, but don't be surprised if this hasn't been expressed to the White House. Well, I can tell you, this is something they talk about. And I have said this, and matter of fact, let me see if I can find this real quick. And here it is right here. I responded back, this much I know, you can't stop the tech. True. But you can make transactions on the tech illegal for merchants and exchanges. Don't believe it, it's still true. Doesn't mean it will happen, but you can bet it's being considered. Count on it. And that's what we're really talking about here from Charles Gasparino and the countries that are currently considering eliminating proof of work mining. Former CFT chair Giancarlo on Russian sanctions, he goes on to talk about here the hegemony of the dollar. He doesn't take any political side when it comes to what's going on. It's really just a push in this article to say, we got to get the digital dollar out here, because he is concerned, however, that the extensive use of sanctions could be the last hurrah for that political weapon. And that is a very real thing, because again, to the point of Bitcoin, it could be used by Russia in moments like this. If you don't think the rest of the governments in the world don't want to ban it, so it has an impact on price and its strength, you're on planet Xanadu. We'll see what's going on there. Now, I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying, don't be surprised if the conversations are taking place. Russia has internal replacement for SWIFT. It's called the SPSF system, I believe it is. My memory serves me right, and it has been built for years. We've covered it on this channel more than 2 years ago. And I've been covering here heavily about the idea and understanding that China and Russia have an independent financial system. Now, this is between themselves, and the SPSF system that they have in Russia is for within Russia. So you still have the problem and issue of doing business if you're Russia outside of your country and outside of China. But the reality is they're making moves. And that ain't all. Because just today, the Russian minister says, we are working on a digital one world currency for trade from the local media in Russia. I got that from a couple different publications today that are reporting that was said today. Now that's pretty impactful. Take a look at this. We know that major US banks are expecting retaliatory ransomware attacks because of the recent SWIFT sanctions. Remember, even though it's US controlled with the sanctions through SWIFT, who owns SWIFT? It's privately owned by the banks. And some of those banks are also on RippleNet. And how is it that this guy, which I'm afraid to play the clip, Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum, warned us about cyber attacks making the pandemic look like a cakewalk, essentially. And how is it he's able to tell us about that? And now we're staring down the barrel of ransomware attacks because of the SWIFT sanctions towards the US banks. Pretty incredible how he knows that. Well, I'll tell you what else is incredible. It's a reminder here, and we've reported on it, but we're going to remind you during this time that while all of this lack of clarity and everything going on about the use of crypto to, work around sanctions for SWIFT and these kinds of things, Ripple, in fact, is hiring a due diligence specialist, global anti-money laundering and sanctions employee is what they're looking for right here. We've covered it before, you see it. And that's a nice reminder to understand that we are in a legal case, we are in a legal battle, but it is also a vetting and an audit process for what I believe is going to become RippleNet, to become a digital arm in collaboration and merger acquisition with SWIFT I also believe that PolySign could possibly be a part of the digital side, transformational side of the DTCC. And Ripple itself could end up becoming a central bank of sorts. The reason I believe that is because we see more evidence of things that are happening here. This was shared right here. It is a patent number that was shared by crypto_XRP. And they say here, Arthur Brito inventions, patents, and applications. And if you go right here to these two pages, it shows David Schwartz and it shows Arthur Brito and the other gentlemen that are also involved in these patent and recent submission here. And it basically is talking about master key escrow process. I don't even want to attempt to try to decode what that's about, other than to share with you that that was filed on October 21st of last year. And the publication, it just happened in early February of this year. That's keeping up on it. What I can tell you is these people down in here, the majority of the people listed down in here, when I go to their LinkedIn page, I see PolySign. I see PolySign, Chief Blockchain Officer, and Bill Morris, Principal Software Engineer, PolySign. So these patents really lend themselves to be involved with PolySign is what I'm seeing there. And it's pretty interesting to think about the world. If we are correct, if I may be correct about the understanding that PolySign may serve as a new digital kind of transformation or a new form of digital settlement like the DTCC or clearinghouse as PolySign for custody and settlement of digital assets and all things digital, derivatives market, and things of that nature. If that is correct, it would be awful timely that we see this publication of this patent happening right now, I would think, even though I don't know exactly what the patent is other than about the keys and the signatures and things of that nature. But we'll wait for somebody with a bigger depth of knowledge on that to break that down than myself. But nevertheless.
So enjoy your day, everybody. I'm always here for you. Leave any comments or questions below and be sure to subscribe. But thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you. Enjoy your day, and I always have your back. So thanks so much, everybody.